Seated, everyone. As Chairman of the Board of Governors of the University of Prince Edward Island, it's my pleasant duty to welcome you all here today for this 11th Annual Founders Day. I hope as you came on campus today you had time to wander about and see the wonderful changes that have taken place on this campus over the last 4 or 5 years, especially an oasis this week from the war zone that's existed around us as the highway construction seems to never end. Yes, an oasis for learning, and an oasis for teaching. I bring greetings to the Board of Governors. I hope you'll enjoy your day. To commence our proceedings, I would like to introduce Sister Sue Kidd for her first official duties as a newly appointed to the pastor role here at the campus. Sister Sue.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Generous God, we place before you our afternoon ceremonies marking our 11th Founders Day at the University of Prince Edward Island. Through your goodness, we ask you to bless us, to bless our ancestors, our founders, upon whose shoulders we stand, and to bless our current academic community. As we remember the good works that have built this academic institution, may we reflect them in our daily lives. We pray in particular today for one woman and 3 men, Barbara Mullally, Ian MacDonald, James Hancock, and Dr. Reg Thomason, who are being honored as part of our Founders Day heritage. They use their gifts and talents for the development of young people in so many varied, diverse domains, and we are grateful. Today, too, we unveil our new coat of arms, held together in faith, knowledge, and service. May we proudly claim and proclaim UPEI as our place of learning. And as we go forth from here, may we carry our successes and our sorrows, our moments of healing, and our jubilations. We make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Sister Sue. I, of course, was struck for the word. It's chaplain, not pastor, and which reminds me, of course, that you will all be wondering about Father Charlie, who has been the chapter here for the last many hundreds of years. Father Charlie assures me that he will continue to be a fixture on campus and will continue enjoying serving the whole campus community. So, Father Charlie, we hope to see you often about the campus, and Sister Sue will carry on the primary duties of college chaplain. I would now like to introduce President Wade McLaughlin, who will introduce her honor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Your Honor, Lieutenant Governor Hagerman, Board Chair Fred Heineman, our MC this afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, people who've been colleagues over many years in this institution, students, members of the big UPEI community, and founders. A number of people who have previously been recognized as UPEI founders and recipients of the Green Hat Award are with us today, and We're especially proud to have with us three who will be newly inducted in 2010, Ian MacDonald, Jim Hancock, and Barb Mullally, and Dr. Reg Thompson to receive the Honourable Eugene Whalen Green Hat Award. As I was thinking about our three founders, I did a little of the math and added up the total number of years that Barb, Jim, and Ian have served UPEI, and the three of you will be glad to know that I came up short of a century, but only a matter of a few years short of the century, and a great century it was for this university. The purpose of Founders Day is to recognize, as Sister Sue said in her invocation, to recognize that we stand on tall shoulders. We didn't get to where UPEI is today, tout à coup. This didn't happen all at once. There have been many steps, many phases, many signal contributions that have enabled UPEI to be the fine and proud university that it is today. There have been challenging times. As we look back over more than 2 centuries from the time that we had our first college in this province, at that time a colony, there have been many periods when the people who worked hard to move what is now UPEI forward did so in the face of even greater challenges than we face today, and indeed in times of real hardship. It's useful today to remember that Memorial Hall was opened in 1946, and in fact its name is to recognize those who fought, and including those who didn't return from World War II, who were students of this, at that time, St. Dunstan's. And in the Robertson Library, there's a memorial plaque to PWC students who served their country and didn't return. Later today, at the reception following this ceremony, we will unveil a plaque and a heritage photo to acknowledge Marion Hall and the Sisters of St. Martha, to acknowledge the uphill struggles that were involved in making a place for women's education and higher education in Prince Edward Island. And it may seem ironic from the perspective of today, when 2/3 of our students are women, and even higher proportions in programs where there are highly competitive entrance processes. It may seem ironic today to remind ourselves that there were those struggles as recently as 60 years ago for the principles of access to higher education and the benefits that a university education brings to the individual and to society. And as we remind ourselves on Founders Day and every day that those struggles have taken place, and some of them in the not too far distant past, I hope that we'll all re-gear and recommit to recognizing where there is still room for struggle, and where there are still breakthroughs to be made, and where there are still uphill slopes to be climbed, as we continue to make this university great in the fullest possible sense. It's interesting, as I said, to remember that barely 70 years ago there was a concept of co-education in the life of universities in this country and elsewhere. I expect there are many of those who were born, let me say, since 1970, to whom or for whom co-education is sort of a new piece of vocabulary. For those who can remember life before the internet, we'll be recognizing Jim Hancock today, and there are a few people in this room, more than a few, who probably have a living memory of when that first mainframe was loaded into the Duffy Building in the 1970s, and how many windows we had to take out to actually get it to go in. Ian MacDonald is being recognized for his work in many capacities, and notably in extension and continuing learning. And to remember that it was as recently as the 1930s, that may not seem so recent to some of us, but it was the 1930s when St. Dunstan's and Prince of Wales together committed through the establishment of the chair in cooperative studies that was occupied by Dr. John Croteau and funded by the Carnegie Foundation. Believe it or not, we received a check, and we've actually seen it, or the letter that came with it, for $75,000 in 1934. That was quite a shock around here, you can imagine. But that actually set in motion a commitment to cooperative education and the whole movement that came with it. Barb Mullally, recognized today, coached basketball in the old alumni gym. Many here may remember what it was to sit on the sidelines, in the measure that there even were sidelines, in the old alumni gym, or remember some of the muddy days before we had an artificial turf field, and so on. There have been a lot of things that have changed and will continue to change, but only because people struggled then, believed in the place, put their best into it, and it's that we honor today. We also honor and welcome our students, and especially to welcome students who are here for the first time in the 2010-11 academic year. This year we have the highest ever number of students who've been enrolled at UPEI, 4,600 full-time and part-time students. An NSO that still echoes on the grounds, a new student orientation that still echoes in the grounds of this place, not least because of the leadership and participation of 100 upper year students who undertook to break the path for the students who follow them. So we're all well represented here today. We're proud to be here. We know that we have a fine university. Today we have the privilege to unveil formally our coat of arms, which has been approved by the Canadian Heraldic Authority. About that I will say no more, because we have our Lieutenant Governor and visitor to the university, Her Honour Barbara A. Hagerman, to officially present those coat of arms. Let me ask you to join me in welcoming Her Honour.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Heineman, President McLaughlin, Mr. Livingston, honored guests, faculty, staff, students, alumni, retirees, and friends of this great university. I just want you to know that I'm one of those people that remembers from long ago, before computers and before credit cards, which I think maybe is even more important. I'm very, very proud to be associated with this university, and I hope that all of you know that about me. And I also want to say that I have noticed all the improvements in the university in the last number of years, and they are marvelous. The exciting task that I will have the pleasure of carrying out in a few minutes couldn't be more appropriate on this special day that highlights our immense pride in the history of UPEI and in the many special people who have worked so diligently and passionately to build UPEI over the decades. On behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, the Canadian Heraldic Authority has officially approved the University of PEI's armorial bearings. They include the flag, the crest, the motto, and the new UPEI coat of arms. The granting of armorial bearings is a great honor that recognizes the ongoing contributions made to the community by our university and acknowledges the institution's most distinguished past. The development of these official symbols of our university began very early in UPEI's history. As many of you know, the University of Prince Edward Island was formed in 1969 as a successor institution to St. Dunstan's University and Prince of Wales College. Under the leadership of UPEI's third president, Dr. Willie Elliott, a provisional coat of arms was created for UPEI, designed by David Weber. Based on that original concept by Mr. Weber and modified by the Canadian Heraldic Authority in close consultation with the university, the coat of arms has been further developed and fine-tuned over the last 7 years. This new coat of arms meets the strict criteria of the Canadian Heraldic Authority, while proudly embracing UPEI's two founding institutions and celebrating the university's ongoing role as a center of advanced learning in Prince Edward Island. Let me provide you with a brief description, and you can look on the back of your programs and follow along. An open book is the image used to convey UPEI's educational mission. The St. Dunstan's University symbols are the hammer and tongs used in St. Dunstan's trade as a blacksmith, and also the bishop's ring. Prince of Wales College is represented by the crown and 3 ostrich feather plumes of the Prince of Wales. It is worthy of note that special permission to use the plumes was obtained from His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, who has passed on his very best wishes to President McLaughlin and all faculty, staff, and students of UPEI. The rust and green colors evoke the beautiful landscape of Prince Edward Island, and an oak tree and saplings reference the PEI coat of arms. Supporting Black Panthers represent the UPEI varsity sports teams, the Panthers. And the university's motto is rendered in Latin. It is Fides Scientia Beneficium, meaning faith, knowledge, and service. As Lieutenant Governor of Prince Edward Island, I am indeed honored and delighted to be invited to unveil the official coat of arms of the University of Prince Edward Island and its supporting images and documents. Like UPEI itself, their development has depended on the creativity and commitment of many talented people over a long period of time. Their successful completion is a significant accomplishment and a historic milestone that we should all joyously celebrate. Would you please now stand in honor of the official unveiling of this beautiful hand-lettered and hand-painted document known as the Letters Patent that the Canadian Heraldic Authority has granted to the University of Prince Edward Island, and please accept my most heartfelt congratulations. There's a method.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would now like to introduce Kate Van Gerven to read the citation for Ian MacDonald. Kate?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So, when I sat down to write about a man like Ian MacDonald, the enormity of this task settled heavy on my shoulders. My pages of notes, scribbled furiously in his living room when we met last week, no longer made sense. Where would I even start to explain this interesting man and all that he has done for UPEI? Then I saw it. On my last page was a quote from Ian himself, and it said, "It has always been the people." Looking around this room today, it's never been so apparent that the heart and soul of the University of Prince Edward Island lies in the people working, studying, and supporting it. Yes, a new building for the School of Nursing and Nutrition will attract more students from around the world. Yes, the Webster Center provides a support system for students of all learning levels. Yes, the Atlantic Veterinary College is known as one of the best vet colleges in North America. And yet, without the support system in place for all of these fantastic things, where would we be? It has always been the people, and Ian MacDonald is one of them. Ian MacDonald's relationship with the University of Prince Edward Island began in 1956, when it was still St. Dunstan's University. Ian made the move from his childhood home on Douglas Street here in Charlottetown to Dalton Hall when it was still an all-male residence and not the Family Science and Nutrition building we know today. He began his university career in the engineering program, but like many UPEI students today, he made the switch to general sciences. It's good to know that some things never go out of style. In this science program, he took chemistry, biology, and physics, as well as some English and other arts courses, which let him graduate from St. Dunstan's as a well-rounded student. Outside of the classroom, Ian was just as well-rounded a student. He was actively involved in his student government, he played on the football team, and even acted in small theater productions. Upon his graduation with the rest of the class of 1960, Ian entered the world as a self-confident, well-read student with a Bachelor of Science degree in hand. He also left St. Dunstan's as his class valedictorian. After graduation, Ian married his childhood sweetheart, Olga Dowling, who was also a fellow student from the class of 1960. After their marriage, Ian and Olga moved from the comfort of Charlottetown to St. John, New Brunswick, where Ian taught at St. Peter's Junior High School. In 1963, the MacDonalds moved back to Charlottetown, where Ian taught at both St. Dunstan's High School and Colonel Grey High School for the next 5 years. In case he wasn't busy enough, Ian also fulfilled the course requirements for his master's in adult education from the University of Wisconsin. Finally, St. Dunstan's and the newly born University of Prince Edward Island claimed Ian MacDonald as our own once again, not as a student this time, but as the first director of UPEI's Extensions and Summer Services Department. While this program had been happening at St. Dunstan's previously, UPEI struck out on its own with Ian at the helm. 28 years in this position has me thinking he was all right at it. Though it's not just the length of time he held this position that proves this. Rather than preach to you about what Ian has accomplished, let me explain to you how it finally sunk in to me. It was just after I had met with Ian and questioned him about everything from St. Dunstan's rockin' social scene to his grandchildren. I had got back to campus and headed to class in main building. As I was walking down the first floor hallway, I looked, as I always do, at the Island Studies mural and heard snippets of conversation coming from all of the offices. The Institute of Island Studies at UPEI is truly a hidden gem on this campus, and until I had met with Ian, I had taken it for granted that it was just always there. In reality, the Institute was created in 1983 under the guidance of Ian and the rest of his department. It began as a way to encourage discussion about issues affecting Prince Edward Island specifically, and since we are such a unique province in regard to the difficulties that we face, it was necessary to form an institute that focused specifically on island life. Since its birth in 1983, it has grown into a well-versed, reputable, and far-reaching institute, attracting people and issues from around the globe. The numerous contributions that Ian has made to this university would keep me up here for hours, so rather than put you all through that, let me end this. Before leaving my meeting with Ian, I asked him, "What are your hopes for UPEI in the future?" His answer spoke volumes to me. He said that he hopes we never lose our sense of community, and that personable charm that this university has. With a past like the one Ian has helped to create and a future as bright as ours, I don't think we'll have a problem. So I agree. I think that everyone will agree with me here in acknowledging Ian MacDonald as a founder of University of Prince Edward Island.
Ian. I'm honored to present you this token for this day and invite you, perhaps, if you'd like to say a few remarks to people here. Thank you very much. Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor, Lieutenant Governor Hagerman, President McLaughlin, President of the Student Union, Mr. Livingston, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As Kate was presenting that absolutely overly kind presentation, I couldn't help but think of the fact that of the number of meetings that I had held with the people that are being recognized this afternoon. Jim Hancock, Barb Mullally, and Reg Thompson. All three made significant contributions to this university. And all three were a pleasure to work with. Excuse me. My association with so many people on this campus was a godsend. It was truly rewarding. Students, staff, faculty members, librarians, administrators, all part of a vibrant and integrated community. UPEI was and is a great institution. It's a jewel for this province. Students that are currently enrolled may have to become alumni members for a few years before they fully appreciate what a great university it is. Thank you for this honor.
I would now like to invite Josh Coles, who is going to provide a citation for James Hancock's award here today. Josh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jim Hancock was born in Newfoundland, from where he and his family emigrated to Canada in 1943. At one point, it was not a Canadian province. He studied at the University of Toronto, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering and also a Bachelor of Education. He and his wife, Gay, live in New Glasgow, and earlier this year celebrated 50 years in marriage. They have two sons, Matthew, who has a PhD from MIT and works at Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard University, and Craig, a business graduate from UPEI, who works in marketing in London, Ontario. Jim first worked at DuPont Corporation, and then, wanting to learn more about the growing field of computers, he joined IBM, International Business Machines. His coming to PEI was somewhat accidental. He and Gay were enduring a rain-soaked camping trip in Newfoundland that fortunately ended with 3 glorious days of PEI sunshine and beaches. Knowing that they had to return to the island, Jim then applied for the advertised Computer Center Director's position at UPEI, which he accepted in 1972. Jim and his staff of one began developing computer programs for the various aspects of the operation of the university. As Kate was saying, it is the people, even if there's just one of them. This was a time of expansion and growth in the use of computers in the region and across Canada. UPEI joined New Brunswick universities with funding from the Maritime Province's Higher Education Commission to form the New Brunswick Prince Edward Island Educational Computer Network, the first interprovincial university network in Canada. This network does still exist today. In partnership with Maritime Electric, UPEI obtained a leading-edge database management system for development of its student records, business office, library, and other administrative applications. The Groen Computer Center, originally located in the Duffy Science Building, moved to the then-new Robertson Library, and later to the, once again, then-new Atlantic Veterinary College. Dr. Reginald Thompson, AVC's first dean, wanted the new college computerized, resulting in computers in every office and development of hospital and laboratory management systems. Networking around the campus was developing quickly. A joint project with Island Telephone made UPEI one of the first campuses in Canada to have all of its buildings connected with fiber optic cables. Over 20 years later, and running over 100 times faster than the original cables, it still serves the campus today. During the 1980s, Jim was a regional director for Net North, which was established to connect Canadian universities and had expanded to reach as far as the United States of America, Europe, and Asia. In 1989, computer services directors from the largest university in each province, luckily we were the only university in the province at that point, so we got to attend, met to discuss setting up a Canada-wide national internet. The National Research Council contracted this group to establish CANet. In just 6 months, CANet became operational. Following one of the meetings, Jim returned home and immediately registered UPEI as upei.ca, unknowingly registering the first internet domain in Canada. In 2008, when the 1 millionth .ca domain was registered, UPEI was again recognized as being the first .ca domain in Canada. Throughout these years, computer services helped faculty, students, and staff move from punch cards to terminals and then to microcomputers. Secretaries traded typewriters for word processors, and our administrative system evolved to online applications. Comparing the fully interconnected UPEI campus of today to the antiquated, room-sized punch card computer of 1972 shows us just how far we have come. After 25 years of change, Jim retired from UPEI in 1997. For these many contributions in computing and networking at UPEI, I ask that James Walter Hancock be named a founder of the University of Prince Edward Island.
Your Honor, Mr. Heineman, President Wade, distinguished guests, and friends. I'm truly honored to be here today to be with you and to share this time. But I'm especially pleased to be here to recognize the contribution of computer services to this campus. Some of you may remember some of these things. And if you've used them, then you're old like me. Do you know how many columns and rows are on these cards? Do you know why it's the size it is? Do you know why there's a corner cut at an angle? There's going to be a test after this class. That allows me to lead back to 1973 when Professor McKinnon from Mount Allison University visited our campus. And he was doing a study on computing at maritime universities. And he said to me, if UPEI is going to attract the best faculty and students, it's going to have access to large computing facilities. That set us a goal of, if we're going to be able to compete with other universities, then we had to have the same kind of facilities that were available at other campuses. Initially, what we did was we rented a very slow telephone line to connect us to UNB. But later on, we began to develop our own improved computer capabilities, and that provided a full range of services to our students, to our faculty, and to our administrative units. And what I see today is a fully interconnected campus with computing and networking equal to any in Canada today. But it was no accident. I was blessed with the very best group of talented young people that anyone could ever want. They were totally dedicated to this campus. No matter how much I ever asked of them, they always said, "Sure, we can do that." They understood what the job was, and they did it with dedication, ingenuity, and always humor. I remember the day I went out to check to see how they were making out with a very large cabling project. We were stringing cables down the long corridors of AVC. And I found them with a remote-controlled tank crawling across the ceiling tiles, dragging a piece of string so they could pull in the cables. They finished the job in record time. So this is very much about those very talented and conscientious people of computer services. Would you please join me with a round of applause for those people? Although we never had enough money or enough staff to do all of the things that we wanted to do, my staff did them anyway, and often that involved evenings, weekends, and all night long if necessary. And for all of that, we also have to thank their families who very graciously gave them up so that they could accomplish those tasks. Most of us had young families with children, making the sacrifice that much more significant. And I want to extend my personal thanks to all of those families as well as my own. When a talented orchestra plays, it's only a worthwhile performance if there is an appreciative and engaged audience. For the first few years that I was at UPEI, we had to push the faculty to try to use the computing facilities. But it wasn't very long before they began to push us to deliver services, sometimes even beyond our own capability to deliver. Without an engaged and interested faculty, it wouldn't have mattered what we achieved. The true performance was in what we accomplished together. When we got it right, you thanked us. When we didn't get it quite so right, you were patient with us, and you helped us to make it even better. And it was always in an atmosphere of cordial, civil, and constructive exchange. That's why I stayed at UPEI. That's why I enjoyed going to work every day. And that's why I feel so very honored today in being able to share this whole journey together that we've had. So my very warm and sincere appreciation to our faculty, students, and staff who have made all of our efforts worthwhile. Whenever a person, a company, or an animal visits our campus, whether it's to deliver a course, take a course, send some email, borrow a book, get treated, pay bills, or get paid, or even just to visit our facilities here, they have touched on services that are provided by our Computer Services Department. Everyone on this campus today is connected to a very dynamic and growing university, and just as importantly, to the world. Every person in UPEI is connected just as well as they would be at any other university in Canada. Our goal from almost 40 years ago continues to this day. From Gay and I thank my staff and their families, and I want to thank all of you, friends and colleagues of UPEI, for this very memorable day. Thank you.
Kyle Murnion will now deliver a citation for Barb Mullally's presentation. Kyle?
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Honor, President McLaughlin, Mr. Hyman, President Livingston. If there ever was a person who epitomizes the term founder of the University of Prince Edward Island, it is Barb Mullally. From the time Barb arrived at Prince of Wales College in 1967 to join the physical education department as a lecturer and coach, to the time she retired from full-time work at UPEI in 2006 as the university's first director of wellness, she has been one of the rocks upon which this university has been built. Barb has had a storied career at UPEI, one in which she has blazed trails for others to follow, and strongly supported both students and colleagues in reaching their dreams. All the while making sure that people were always treated right. She also constantly demonstrates that while you can take your work seriously, you don't have to take yourself seriously. When Prince of Wales and St. Dunstan's combined to form UPEI in 1969, Barb became the university's first women's basketball and field hockey coach. She taught academically for 20 years in the phys ed department and education faculty. She served for 13 years as UPEI's director of athletics and physical education, becoming one of the country's most respected university sport administrators. In 2003, she became the university's first director of wellness, and in 2004, she added the role of fair treatment advocate. Barb has had such a diverse and wide-ranging career that it's hard to fit it all into one citation. She has been president of Atlantic University Sport and chaired numerous AUS committees and sports over the last 40 years. She has also been honored by Canadian Inter-University Support for her long-term contributions in a number of roles, including chair of CIS Finances and a member of the CIS Board of Directors. Barb is a master instructor of coaching theory for the National Coaching Certification Program and taught the program here on PEI for almost 20 years. She has been highly involved with PEI's Canada Games history, including extremely active roles when the province hosted the Games in 1991 and 2009. She is in demand throughout the public and private sectors for self-designed wellness courses and was a busy presenter of pre-retirement seminars. This is a ceremony. Until she took her own advice and retired. For someone who burns with a fierce competitiveness, it is remarkable that in all of Barb's efforts across a wide spectrum of activities, what emerges is a desire to make every situation a win-win. Where she is, there are no losers. As a coach, teacher, and sport administrator, her career has been strongly characterized by an overarching commitment to the well-being and lifelong development of every student-athlete. It is no accident that so many of them have gone on to success in leadership positions across the country. Barb is the ultimate mentor, supporting students, colleagues, and friends in every endeavor. The area of wellness was a natural fit for her. When she retired from athletics, and certainly no one had earned more respect across campus, and was therefore more suited to the role as the university's first fair treatment advocate. Barb's 40-year career at UPEI has been marked by her rock-solid integrity. She did not cut corners. She did not compromise on what was right and wrong, and she made sure that UPEI was always on the side of what was right, not what was expedient or easy. It is my pleasure to present one of UPEI's founders and one of its greatest pillars of strength, Barbara Mullally.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, and Mr. President of the Student Union, and all honored guests and people who are here. I want to take this opportunity to thank the people who were responsible for this today. It's very much an honor. But in saying that, I also want to thank all of the people who were part of it. We're part of a fabric. I'm one thread. And I think that the strength of my thread was based on the people that we worked so closely with, and certainly two of the people are being honored here today. I punched those cards for a master's thesis, Jim. I turned them backwards. I brought them in the morning and shunted them up to UNB, only to find out when they came back at the end of the day that I had turned one backwards. And you always got if you've got a big, thick printout, you knew you had made a mistake. You didn't have to look at the printout. And that first introduction, I think, to computer services and the use of the computer was something that I think then encouraged us in athletics. And I can remember when we adopted or brought the first Tandy 1000, was it, into our department so that we could, as an athletic department, send scores into Atlantic University sport. And we were probably one of the first offices of our kind in Atlantic Canada to have a computer. And so that was certainly a very good experience. And Ian, where would I be without him? He was my mentor, particularly when I began to take the directorship in athletics. He was there. I still have the first aid, the athletic director's first aid kit that came in the little drug bottle that he gave me one day when he knew I needed to be encouraged a little bit. And it had all kinds of things like string and matches and all kinds of things that you could use to perhaps set fire to some situations. or in some cases put out situations. He was there, and Ian was, I could always go and talk to Ian, and we wrestled with a lot of problems. We solved a lot of problems, and I certainly enjoyed every single minute of it, and we wouldn't have been as successful in our programs if it hadn't been, I think, for both Ian and Jim, and so I'm very pleased to be part of this ceremony today. As we progressed, I mean, I think I was the beneficiary of being in the right place at the right time a number of times. If you've read the book The Outliers, it talks about when you were born and where you were born in the year, and I think that certainly was reflective in some of the things that I was able to do. Wade talked about co-education being a concept. Well, females in athletics in the 69, 70 was, tripping on the edge of heresy almost, and we had to sort of educate as part of the ongoing process. And it was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity, and I think that's, we worked our way through that. And then I think we faced the challenge around athletics becoming an important part of university and our belief that athletes should be students. And I had the pleasure of attending the legacy ceremony last night where 56 of our student athletes, over a third of our student athletes are academic All-Canadians. And I think that was a long evolutionary process sort of to get us to that particular point. And I think probably with the most excitement is looking at where we've come. How many here remember the old gym? It was, as Wade said, when you coached, the players sat on spectators' laps by times. People were, when you think of from a legal liability, how many times people crashed into a stage at the end. And to see where we've come in about 20 years in terms of facilities to probably one of the best set of facilities of any university in Canada, all in one place. And again, it was a slow process, and we took it step by step, and nobody ever said no, but they didn't always say yes, and so you sort of had to find a way to keep coming at them. So I think I've been blessed to have been a part of those opportunities. We've certainly looked at challenges, and I think we've accomplished a great deal, and I think we've overcome a lot of those challenges. But you don't do it by yourself. It's part of a team, and both the athletes that were inducted last night said that, and I think it's very true when we're talking about the University of Prince Edward Island. We've had a fabulous team, both past. I think we have fabulous teams going forward, and I think that we just all remember that we're on that same team. We're pulling in that same direction, and we're going to, there's nothing we can't do that we put our mind to. We just have to sort of make a plan and go at it. And I certainly am excited to still be associated with the university and a couple of committees, and every now and then get a call to do something that they need some help with, and to have been associated with the university as long as I have. I'd like to thank all those people who worked with me over the years, and it was 39 and a half years, and they made it a joy. The people made it fun to come to work. There were problems. We solved them. We moved on, and I think that we were able to be successful. As many of you know, I'm a fairly verbal person. You probably shouldn't put me up behind a mic. A lot of the times I have to talk things through it, and certainly the colleagues that I worked with, I learned that. And I also want to thank Mary Lou when I would go home and she'd have to listen to me taking these things verbally through to get to some solution, and she was pretty patient, and it certainly made my life a lot easier. So thank you very much for allowing me to be part of the ceremony, and I look forward to seeing the great strides that the University of Prince Edward Island continue to make.
I would now like to call on Nolan Osborne, who will provide a citation for the Green Hat Award, which is also an inductee into the UPEI Founders. The presentation will be made following the citation by Dr. Don Reynolds, Dean of the Atlantic Veterinary College. Nolan.
I'd like to thank you for allowing me to do this today. It's really an honor to be here. It is fitting that 20 years after the graduation of the charter class of the Atlantic Veterinary College in 1990, we pause to reflect on the man who more than anyone is responsible for the establishment of the AVC at the University of Prince Edward Island, Dr. R.G. Thompson. Founding Dean Thompson is virtually unknown to students who fill the halls of AVC today. As well, many current staff and faculty have never had the opportunity to work with or meet him. Dean Thompson has been gone from AVC for 20 years now, but his legacy lives on. Today's Atlantic Veterinary College is a justifiably proud institution, universally recognized for the quality of its graduates, the discoveries of its researchers, and the care and support of regional animal populations and veterinary practitioners. This relatively small college has made a difference in veterinary medicine that belies its stature, but that faithfully reflects the culture of hard work and determination established at the very onset by Dr. Thompson. Reginald Thompson was born on a dairy farm in Woodstock, Ontario, on April 7th, 1934. In high school, he drove a green pickup truck with a big picture of a Jersey cow painted on the side. With this truck, he would call for Elaine Urey, a town girl and his future wife. Dr. Thompson graduated from the Ontario Veterinary College in 1959, and then he worked in private practice for 2 years. He returned to the OVC to pursue a Master's of Veterinary Science degree in pathology, with which he graduated in 1963. He became a diplomat of the American College of Veterinary Pathologists and obtained a PhD at Cornell in 1965. After which time he received an appointment as associate professor at the OVC, and within 2 years was promoted to full professor. Some of his students were AVC's own doctors Tim Ogilvie, Jerry Johnson, Jim Bellamy, Paul Hanna, Barb Horney, and Ian and Susan DeHoo, amongst others. In an academic setting, Dr. Thompson was highly respected, but for the unprepared student, almost feared. He was very disciplined and detailed in his approach to the study of veterinary pathology. He also had the ability to know every single student in his class by name. So this combination of expecting academic excellence and being asked specific questions proved to be very daunting for veterinary undergrads, particularly on Monday morning after the bleary-eyed and addle-headed came back from a weekend of social engagements. Dr. Thompson's research interests were centered on bovine respiratory disease, where he supervised many graduate students in his academic career, including AVC's Dr. Basil Icade and Alfonso Lopez. In late 1978, Dr. Thompson was granted a 3-year leave of absence from the OVC to explore the possibility of establishing a veterinary college in Atlantic Canada. As planning coordinator for the proposed school, he was tasked with identifying for Atlantic Canadians the need for and benefits of a veterinary college, and developing a vision for the kind of school it should be. During this period, Dr. Thompson made numerous presentations to universities, bureaucrats, provincial and federal politicians, veterinarians, farmers, fishers, and the media, as well as the general public, to seek their input and to help formulate his vision. His vision, determination, and tireless efforts during this period laid the groundwork for the establishment of this great college. In 1983, it was finally announced that the Atlantic Veterinary College would be established at the University of Prince Edward Island, and Dr. Thompson would be its founding dean. Over the next few years, Dr. Thompson guided a team of architects, builders, and veterinary colleagues in assembling a world-class veterinary medical research and service facility at UPEI. Due in no small measure to his national and international veterinary experience, he was able to recruit highly skilled faculty and staff in spite of severe shortages in many veterinary disciplines at the time. Dr. Reg Thompson was a quiet man but intense, and extraordinarily well-focused. He was the proverbial man of action, a tireless worker, regularly putting in 6 to 7 days a week. Although he cherished his naps after supper, he would often return to work until midnight. It is unbelievable how hard he worked and how much he achieved as a teacher, a researcher, an author, an editor, and an administrator. Many of his achievements were in no small part due to the boundless support he received from his wife, Helen, and their 3 daughters. Helen accompanied him to meetings and conferences. She organized the home front and opened her home to students, especially international students who otherwise would have sometimes felt lost soon after their arrival to Canada. After being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in his mid-50s, Dean Reginald Thompson retired from the University of Prince Edward Island in 1991 to return to Woodstock, Ontario, his place of birth. In December 2002, Dr. Thompson passed away at the age of 68.
Thank you, Nolan. Helen Patterson was unable to be here today, former wife of founding Dean Reginald Thompson. She sends her sincere thanks, she sends her regards, and she sends her best wishes for the college and for the university. This time I'd like to ask Dr. Basil Akiti to come forward to accept this award on behalf of this family.
Oh, you care to respond? Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Your Honor, Lieutenant Governor Barbara Hageman, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Heinemann, excuse me, President Wade McLaughlin, AVC Dean, Don Reynolds, the 2010 inductees or founders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As a former student of Dr. Rich Thompson and a long-time family friend, and I also say as a professional colleague for several years, I'm delighted to stand here on behalf of the Thompson family to accept the 2010 Green Heart Award given to Dr. Thompson posthumously. Mrs. Helen Thompson, as the Dean had just mentioned, Helen Thompson Patterson, had planned to be here with her husband to receive this award. Unfortunately, the husband, Ron, had an accident shortly before they were to leave from Woodstock in Ontario to PEI. I spoke to Helen earlier this week, and she said that she's sad that she's not able to be here at this time. She has asked me to convey her special thanks to ABC and to the university for this special award. She's touched that 20 years after Dr. Thompson stepped down on health ground as ABC founding dean, he is still fondly remembered and held in very high regard by the university community. She is very pleased with the copy of the citation sent to her in advance and read very well by Nolan Osborne. Although Dr. Thompson is virtually unknown to current AVC students and newer faculty and staff members, including, I just understand, even the dean doesn't know him or didn't know him. He left behind lasting legacies as stated in the citation. In addition to a world-class veterinary school, there are men and women he trained and monitored and mentored during his brilliant academic career. His graduate students came from different parts of the world. He trained them well as pathologists and researchers. And today, they are serving or have served, like me, who retired just 2 years ago, as pathologists in various countries of the world, and they are serving as workers in pharmaceutical companies as pathologists, or they may be in the universities as professors and researchers, or they may be in public service, especially in the areas of animal agriculture, companion animals, and public health. Dr. Thompson was very disciplined and might have been daunting with veterinary undergrads, as was mentioned in the citation, but he was a special, really special gem to graduate students, particularly foreign graduate students. He related to them not just as a supervisor or a mentor, but also as a big brother, and in some cases, as a big uncle, whenever the situation will arise. Let me end with a personal note. Exactly 40 years ago this month, I arrived in Canada for the first time as a foreign graduate student at the Ontario Veterinary College. My first night in in Guelph, was spent in the home of Reg and Helen Thompson and their 3 young daughters. They gave me an unforgettable, warm welcome to Canada, which probably made it easy for me to come back eventually to take a position here at this university. And I was, of course, coming from Nigeria, where the weather was a lot warmer in September. So the next day, Helen took me to Zella's store to buy some warm clothing. And she picked a blanket and paid for it for me. So that was the first blanket I got in Canada, and I'm sure you know I will have got many more since these 20 years I've been here. So on behalf of Helen and the family, I say thank you to the university for the honor bestowed on Dr. Thompson and his family. Helen plans to be in PEI next year to collect the beautiful award in person. And actually, we say really beautiful because instead of a green hat, which obviously she would have been wearing, we have a beautiful picture of the college as it has expanded since the time that Reg Thompson was here. So thank you very much for this special honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been treated to citations well written, beautifully delivered, which remind us of such great contribution from the 4 inductees today. My thoughts were the passion, the commitment, and just the quality of the work and lives of those persons inducted here today. I have found it very inspiring. And I invite you to stand and share with me a round of applause to the persons inducted as founders of this university today. Thank you. Of necessity, our thoughts have been about the past, a great past, preparing for the future. I would now like to call on Megan Jennings, who will deliver a salute to the future, to the class of 2014. Megan?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Your Honor, President Wade McLaughlin, President Livingstone, Heinemann. As we look from the past to the future of this wonderful university, I just want to have our class of 2014 stand We had a remarkable amount of registered NSO students participate this year, with about 700 actually attending NSO. So as you can see, we have a wonderful future to look forward to. And despite only 3 being here today, we know that there is still a great deal of enthusiasm and spirit in their entire class, and all I have to say is Disco Pogo is a great example of that. We also want to look at our Shinerama total as another example of our excellent enthusiasm of our current class of 2014. Our goal this year was 20,000, but we managed to raise over 26,000 for our Shinerama total. So with that, I'd just like to thank you guys, class of 2014. We can expect great things from you, as well as our current students here.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that just about concludes our function here today. And before we break, I did want to invite you to take particular look at the proclamation, which is displayed here and requires a good look. I understand thanks are due to Integrated Communications, especially Glenda Clement-Smith, who have devoted a great deal of work in bringing this to its present happy conclusion. There will be a reception immediately following this gathering in Skirman Market Square, which is back-to-back to us. And one final note, I'd ask you to look at the citation and not linger too long, because this room is committed for another gathering at 4 o'clock. So we'll see you next door. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.